famous Sugia, talks about the name of Mashiach and how Mashiach will come and the attributes Mashiach will have. So the second of the large lines at the bottom, the Sugia starts, Shmoi, Zog Rashi, Shel Mashiach. So the Gemara is now going to be discussing the name of Mashiach. The Beit Rabbi Shela Amri, the yeshiva of Rabbi Shela says, Shilai Shemai. Mashiach's name is Shilai. Nema Atiyave Shilai. The Beit Rabbi Yanai, the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai Amri, they say Yinain Shemai, and they give a pasuk also. Shneimar Yehi Shemai La'ilam Pnei Shemesh Yinain Shemai. The third yeshiva says, the Beit Rabbi Chanina Amri, Chanina Shemai. The yeshiva of Rabbi Chanina say Chanina is the name of Mashiach. Shneimar, and they give a pasuk Asher Layatim Lachem Chanina. The Yesh Emrim, and there's a Yesh Emrim that says Menachem ben Chizkiah Shemai. That Menachem ben Chizkiah is the name of Mashiach. Shneimar Kirach Apameni Menachem Meshav Nafshi. Rabbanan Amri Chibra the Beit Rabbi Shemai. Shneimar Alkin Hailenu Hu Nasa. Machavenu Sivla Banachnu Kashbanuhu Nagu Muka Elakim Umahuna. Amar, the Gemara continues. Till now was the name of Mashiach. Now Rav Nachman says, Amar Rav Nachman, Imin Chayaya, if Mashiach will be from the living, going on it is like me. And he gives a pasuk. Shneim Vaya Adirim Menu Umayshtam Mikibra Yatzam. Amar Rav said, Imin Chayaya Hu Kugain Rabbeinu Kodesh. Mashiach comes from living, like Rabbeinu Kodesh. Imin Messiah, who, if it's from the maisim, is Kugain Daniel Ishchamudes. That's basically the end of the Sugia. The next few lines we'll do soon. So we see clearly while the Rav is alive, they would say the Rav is Mashiach. Some say they just said he has the name of Mashiach, the attributes Mashiach will have, and some of Farshim say not only does the Rav have the attributes of Mashiach and the name of Mashiach, but the Rav himself, the Rosh Shiva, is actually Ro'i Leis Mashiach. That if the Gula would happen in a day, he would be the Mashiach. Rabbi Shila, Rabbi Yanai, Rabbi Hanina, Menachem ben Chizkiah, they're all saying these Ro'i Leis Mashiach. So obviously this all happened while the Rav was alive. The question we're about to go into is, what happened after the Rosh Hashiva passed away? Did they stop saying the Rav was Ro'i Leis Mashiach, or did they continue? So if we look into the Gemara, we see, as Rashi says, by Yinain Shemai, each one would dairish after his own name. So the Rav himself would hint he is the Mashiach. He doesn't say darash with the kamas, ala dairish. It wasn't just a one-time deal. The Rav would be dairish. Lashon haiva, it wasn't just a one-time deal. The Rav would drop hints that he's Mashiach. Why did they think the Rav was Mashiach? Because each time the Rav gave a pasuk. The first Rav was Rabbi Shela. He said a pasuk, Kiyave Shilai. So why do they think the Rav is Mashiach? Not because the ikar of a savara that the Rav is the Gres Talmid Chacham, but rather because there's a pasuk. The reason why they think the Rav is Mashiach is because the Rav himself hinted to the fact by using a pasuk. The raya from the pasuk is a raya while the Rav is alive, but after the Rav is a niftar, the raya from the pasuk doesn't change. The raya is a pasuk sai when he's alive, and the pasuk is a raya sai after misasai. That's diak number one. Diak number two is who would say his.
Where do you see that the pasuk continues after he passed away?
Why did they think he was Mashiach while he was alive? Because the Rav himself darshan the pasuk. That's why they think he's alive. After he passes away, does the pasuk change? The Rav from the pasuk is Nishar Emes. It doesn't change based on whether the Rav is alive or after the Rav is Nifta La'ayluman. Why do they think he's Mashiach? The Rav himself darshan the pasuk. It became the Messiah.
So why does Rav say that when Rabbeinu Kodesh was alive, I mean when his Rebbe was alive?
Excellent.
He said,
good question. I'll get to it. Very good question. So the Rav from the pasuk. Number two, who darshan the pasuk? The Abarbanel says first the Rav would be darshan the pasuk, and then the Talmidim chapped on. The Rav's hinting his Mashiach, so it became a Messiah of the yeshiva. So the question is, did these yeshivas stop right after the Levaya of the Rav that passed away? So it's Makar. I'm writing a contrast. It's called Shmoi Shel Mashiach, will be published soon. These yeshivas continued after the Rav passed away. This Mustaver Laimar, if the Rav taught, for instance, a Ravius is, for instance, 28 milliliters, after the Rav passes away, they don't suddenly just change the shittas. There's no reason to change the shitta. As we'll find out, there's no reason. You're going to get that. So number one, there's a pasuk, didn't change. Number two, we see it's a yeshiva. The yeshiva continued. And it says in the Gemara, Amri. It doesn't say Amru, it says Amri. Amru is Lashon Avar. Amri, in Aramaic, is also Lashon Haiva. They're continuing to say. But third, and here's to answer your question, all of the people who give a name, it says Amri after. They're coming to argue with each other. But the Gemara continues and says Amar Rav. When you have Amar before the Chacham's name, he's saying a statement. If he says Rav Amar afterwards, Rabbi Kiva Eimer after his name, he's going to be quite like on the other Chacham talking. But over here, the Gemara fears Ois, Amar Rav, who's an early Amayra, also considered Rav Tano Palig. Amarat, Iman Chayaya, who Ben Rabbeinu Kadosh. Mashiach comes from the living, like you said, it's Rabbeinu Kadosh. Even Messiah, who, if Mashiach comes from the living, Hagarim, don't come with us. So these Bnei Yeshiva, they know Rav, who's the first generation Amayra, says Mashiach can come in Chayim, but Mashiach can also come in a maisim. Being they know Mashiach can come in a maisim, and the Rav darshan the pasuk, they had no reason to stop saying the Rav was Mashiach even after the Rav's Ketira. That which they did while the Rav was alive, they continued to do after he passed away, as they had no reason to stop. They had no reason to change the Shita. Not by this or by anything else the Rav taught them. Hence it says Amri. So the Gemara continues. How did Rav just teach us the limit that Mashiach can come in a Chaim and a maisim? And a maisim he taught us from Daniel. We all know there's a famous Yerushalmi Medrash and Zohar that says, Ima Messiah, if Mashiach comes from the maisim, David Shmei, David Hamal. And the Pnei Moshe says in the Yerushalmi, if Mashiach comes from the maisim, David Shmei, David Ba'atzman, David Hamal himself. So the question is, why did Rav teach us the limit that Mashiach can come in a maisim from Daniel? Why didn't he just say from David? So the Gemara continues. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, the same Rav that just said Daniel. Asid HaKadosh Baruch Hu Lamed Lahem David Acher. In the future, the Eibush is going to bring Mashiach. He's going to rise up another David, a different David. Shenamar, because it says in a pasuk, Avdu Es Hashem Elokehem, the Ace David Malcham Hashem Akim Lahem. And they serve the Lord their God, and David their king, which I will raise up. Heikim Lainamar doesn't say I will raise up in past tense. Lainamar Ela Akim, I will raise up. From here we see a David Acher. When Mashiach comes, will not be David Hamelech. Rav holds Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. There'll be a David Acher. Rav Beferish holds David Hamelech will not be Mashiach if Mashiach comes in Maisim. Why? Heikim Lainamar Ela Akim. There's a pasuk. This made Rav Papa very nervous. The Gemara continues. Amalei Rav Papa Labaye. How can Rav Yehuda say in the name of Rav, David Hamelech will not be Mashiach if Mashiach comes in Maisim? Hakasir says in a pasuk. But David Adi Nasi Lahem La'olam says, David, my servant, will be the Nasi forever. Which Abaye understood this to mean. That means David Hamelech will be Mashiach if Mashiach would come in a Maisim. So and for Abaye, the Gemara says, Abaye says back, again, Kesa Palgi Kesa. It's like Caesar and his viceroy. Zog Rashi, Akim, Heikim Lainam Al Akim, going Kesa Palgi Kesa. Malach Vasheni Loy will be the king and his second in command, his viceroy. Cain David HaKadosh. The new David will be Melech, Mashiach. But David Malkam Asher Akim. But David HaMelech, Sheni Loy. Nasi Lam Loylam, like to say, Melech. So we see over here, they hold David HaMelech will not be Mashiach if Mashiach will come in a maisim. We just said before, there's a Medrash under Yerushalmi and Zohar that says David Shmei. No one said, how can you say David HaMelech is not going to be Mashiach? They accepted it. We see Rav Yehuda, Rav Baye, and Rav Papa all hold David HaMelech is Ois. David HaMelech will not be Mashiach. When Mashiach comes in, Mashiach would come in maisim. No one in the Bavli gave a kash on this. They accepted it. That the machlekes Bavli Yerushalmi is David HaMelech will be Mashiach or not. The Bavli holds David HaMelech is not going to be Mashiach and maisim. Yerushalmi holds David Shmei. So we see Rav also holds David Shmei. He says David Acher. His name is David. Obviously David Acher, and under David. So Rav holds David Shmei like the Medrash, Yerushalmi, and Zayah of the Nish David HaMelech. So, any questions? So,
Yeah. Why can't you say when it says David Acher in Yerushalmi, it means the same thing? When it says that David's going to be Moshiach and maisim, the Yerushalmi, why can't I say it means the same thing as over here? David Acher.
So, very good, right? In the Rishonim, we'll go perhaps a different time. The Rasha is if Mashiach comes from the living, David Shmei. If Mashiach comes from the maisim, David Shmei. So it doesn't say the head as part of the Medrash itself that David Shmei means it's David HaMelech. All the Mefarshim do say if Mashiach comes from a maisim, it is David HaMelech. It's the Mefarshim that learn David Shmei. But Pashtus, it makes sense because who is David min HaMaisim? The time the Gemara was written, and the Medrash was written. So David Pashtus is David HaMelech. And that's the way most of the Chachamim and Mefarshim learn David Shmei. But we see the Hedya, it is a machlekes Bavli Yerushalmi. And there's a very famous Yavitz on the Siddur and Piyut. We say by Haishana Rabbah, we say Samach Shemai Hu David Ba'atzmai, if you're familiar with that, by Haishanas. So we see it says David himself. Say, look, the guy is the whole Mashiach ben Amazing because he's twisting over and saying David Atmai al yidei Gilgal through a reincarnation. But now we just learned the Bavli says David HaMelech will not be. So therefore we can say the guy that's holding Shitas of Bavli will not be Mashiach. Not that the Yavitz holds against Chazal. Chazal say the fair Mashiach can come in a Chaim, and Chazal say Mashiach can come in a maisim. There's no reason for a Rishon or an Acharon especially to say no, we don't hold Mashiach min maisim. It's the fair Chazal, and we'll go into the Rishonim. So when he says al dei Gilgal, the Pashtas, he means Kashitas Abavli, not Kashitas Abavli that David HaMelech won't be Mashiach. Elamai, the Atzmai say Taichas Ois will be al dei Gilgal, because whoever Mashiach is has obviously a shaykhus to David. As we say, David Acher, his name is David. So, any other questions?
How does it feel with the Rambam? The Rambam says, what does it mean, if the guy died 1,000 years ago,
I'll be happy to talk about that. Offline, we can do that. We want to focus right now. Basically, the Rambam is talking a halacha. If you look in that halacha you're referring to, the Rambam is beferish talking about, if you look inside, it says, the Rambam is only telling you how to koiveya, how to establish who is the one that the Torah promised. Here in the Gemara, we're talking about Ro'i Liyes Mashiach, someone who's befitting to be Mashiach, not the actual Mashiach. Rebbe and Daniel, they're not Mashiach, they didn't build the Beis HaMikdash. If the Eibshter will bring the Geula in the days of Rebbe, Rav holds, Rebbe's going to be the one to build the Beis HaMikdash.
So the last halach is talking about Mashiach Vadeh.
The Rambam Halach Yotomai is talking about the Cheskas Mashiach and Vadeh Mashiach, who's the same person, obviously. This person is the ultimate Redeemer. The Rambam is teaching how do you recognize the ultimate Redeemer. Here, we're just talking about Ro'i Leis Mashiach. All the Mepharshim say, Rav is not saying Rebbe is Mashiach. Rav is learned by all the Mepharshim saying Rebbe is Ro'i Leis Mashiach. That if the Geula would happen in his days, it would be Rebbe. The Beis Shilei, the Beis Yanai would say, if Mashiach happens in, it's going to be, who's going to be the ultimate Redeemer? It's going to be Rebbe Shila. It's going to be Rebbe Yanai. It's going to be Rebbe Chanina. Now, if we look even further, Amar Rav Nachman, right? If you look, Amar Rav Nachman, Imin Chayai Huk Gain Ana. Why is Rav Nachman bavarning if Mashiach comes from the living, it's like me? Havalei Laim Amar Rav Nachman, Huk Gain Ana. Vasepes Imin Chayaya. Why does he need to bavarn if Mashiach comes from the living? Baba Pochet, no? Elamai, Stam Rav Nachman is Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov, which is a second generation Amayr. He took over the yeshiva from Shel in Nahardar. And Stam Rav Nachman is Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, who's a fifth generation Amayr. So the Marsha learns it's Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov, Bar Banel learns it's Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, but for now we'll focus on that it's Rav Nachman Bar Yaakov, a second generation Amayr. Rav Nachman took over the yeshiva from Shmoi in Nahardar, which was originally where Rabbi Shel was. Rav Nachman, we said, was a second generation Amayr. Rav, a very early generation Amayr, is also known as a Tana, Upaliku. Rabbi Shela, Rabbi Chanina, and Rabbi Yani were all first generation Amayraim. Once they're Niftar, that's the second generation Amayraim. That's the second generation already. That's the generation of Rav Nachman. Why is Rav Nachman, Afshalem, why is Rav Nachman, I can say, Imin Chayaya? Because Rav Nachman knew ganz klar, the whole second generation of Amarayim, the three prestigious yeshivas of Rabbi Shila, Chanin, and Yanai, all saying Mashiach is coming min ha-maisim. He didn't want to start a fight with these prestigious yeshiva Bachrim. He said, Ba'in ha-chanam, Mashiach is coming ha-maisim. Abba, Imin Chayaya, but if he comes from the living, who could go in honor, is like me. That's why he's saying, Imin Chayaya. So this whole sugya, from Shmoi until Palgei Pesach, yeah? It's a good 8 lines. It's thumb lines, the wide lines. This whole sugya is dealing with Mashiach, Simon HaChaim, and Simon HaMaisim. Till now, the whole Vel thought there's a couple of Maimarei Chazal that are isolated and perhaps a little bit abstract. That Rav says, Mashiach can come in maisim, it's like Doniyah. Here we see there's a whole flowing sugya that's dealing with Mashiach coming in HaChaim and in HaMaisim. And furthermore, after Shalema, we see real uvdois. That what? The Gemara records there's instances of the Talmidim continuing to call their Rav Mashiach even after his niftar. The Beis Shila, the Beis Yana, and the Beis Chanina, after Shalema, they continued. So we see a precedent recorded in the Gemara of Talmidim to continue to call their Rav Mashiach, because they have no reason to stop. They held his Ru'ili as Mashiach, and when the Eibishter brings the Gula, he will be the ultimate Redeemer. Any questions?
If in every generation there's their Rav and their Nasi, so how could you say that each generation said that their Nasi is their ultimate Redeemer? So how could you say that there's going to be a whole bunch of Mashiachs? There's one Mashiach who's the ultimate Redeemer. So how could you say that every generation there's another ultimate Redeemer?
Good question. We see here recorded precedents of Talmidim continuing to call the Rav Mashiach even after his Patira. It's not a Heichacha Berura, it's Afshar Lema, because they had no reason to stop. If somebody feels like Reb Nachum Chanam recorded, he felt the Baal Shem Tov with Mashiach even after the Baal Shem Tov passed away. This Talmud, he felt, there's no one greater than my Rav. How many people actually did that throughout history? Not too many. But what you said is, yes, Mashiach has to be in every single generation alive. Even Rav, who says Mashiach min ha-maisim, he's saying Mashiach can come from the living. Anyone who holds Mashiach from the maisim, Rav, that's where we learn from, he still holds Mashiach min ha-chayim. The question is, like we see by the Beis Shila, Beis Yana, Beis Chanina, they continued. After Rebbe passed away, did Rav continue to point out who Mashiach is min ha-chayim? Vada, he holds Mashiach can come min ha-chayim. But now Rebbe passed away, did he continue to point out who that person could be? In potential, it's definitely possible, yeah. But perhaps, a question to ponder, did he continue to just say, Mashiach is also coming in ha-maisim? Because Rebbe passed away. Surely he thinks Rebbe would also be Mashiach in ha-maisim, because he had, as we'll see in Rashi, he had the same techunais as Daniel. Let's see in Avena. Imin chayayahu kagayin Rebbeinu Chadash. So the Gemara said, Amarav, even Chayahu gain Rabbeinu Kodesh, even Messiah who gain Daniel Shchumolis. Question is, so what's difficult to understand? Why does Rashi need to say anything right now? Why does Rashi need to explain something? What kasha does Rashi need to keep us straight with? Kasha is a Zay. Rav taught us Mashiach and Chaim and maisim. In addition to saying that, he said Kagayin Rabbeinu Kodesh and Kagayin Daniel. Kagayin means like. So if he's using the word like on two different chachamim, to
teach us Mashiach ben Chaim and maisim, why didn't Rav just say if Mashiach comes from the living or from the maisim, it's Kagoin Rabbeinu Kodesh. It's someone like Rabbeinu Kodesh. But he says it's Kagoin Rebbe and Kagoin Daniel. How can it be like two different people? Why didn't you say that? Why didn't you just say, forget Daniel, just teach us the Mashiach ben Chaim and maisim from Rebbe? Then you'll have someone like this. So, and for Rashi is what's Pshat? In Mashiach, maisim Chaim Achshav, Mashiach comes from those who are alive now. Vada Hainu Rabbeinu Kodesh. B'Shuatz Rabbeinu Kodesh. Why? The Sevel Tachaloi because it Gamar Hab. He suffered and he was righteous. Kalaminu Rav Mashiach. If Hayam maisim Shmeitzim, where if Mashiach is from those who died already, Hayah Daniel is Chamodes. It will be Daniel. Why? Shanida B'Yisrael B'Gad Arais because it Gamar Hayah. Hayah Kagoin Lav Dafka. Rashi changes Kagoin from its usual meaning. He says Kagoin doesn't mean like. Kagoin over here means Hainu. It is ready. It is Daniel. He takes Kagoin out of its usual meaning. The Margalia Sayam also gives places in Shas on this Gemara where Kagoin is Lav Dafka. So what do we see with this Rashi, first period of Rashi? They're saying, Rav is saying Rebbe is Mashiach and Daniel is Mashiach. And that's it. Question is, why is Rashi now giving a second period? What's wrong? If Rashi would have stopped here, would we be happy or would we have kasha? Obviously Rashi is giving a second period because there's a kasha which is first period that he needs to give me after the second period. So what's the kasha you would have if Rashi stopped here? The kasha would be, as the Minchas Elazar points out, how can Rav say Rebbe is Mashiach? Rebbe is Roy Leis Mashiach. When we know from Gemara and Kesubos that Rebbe is related to David HaMelech from the female side of the family, to Minukvaya, which is a Roy Lamalchus. How can Rav be saying, how can Rashi be saying, Haygoin Lav Dafka, Rebbe is Mashiach? It's a kasha. Also, Min HaMaisim, how can you say Min HaMaisim, only Daniel is Mashiach Min HaMaisim? Surely there's dozens of tzaddikim who Roy Leis Mashiach. All the Malchei Beis Yisrael. Till now, maybe we could put David, Shloimeh HaMelech, all the Nevi'im. What about all the Tanaim? Rav saying, only Daniel is Mashiach? How can that be? So these are the two kashas which we would have had Rashi stopped here, as the Minchas Elazar points out. Therefore, Rashi gives another period to be miyash of these two kashas. Lishna Achrima. Kagoin Rabbeinu Kodesh. Halayma. Im yesh tugmase b'chayim. If there's an example of someone who resembles Mashiach, who is alive today, Hainu Rabbeinu Kodesh. It is Rabbeinu Kodesh. In the second period, Rabbeinu Kodesh is not Mashiach anymore. It's not being called Mashiach. He resembles the Mashiach. So therefore it answers the first kasha, how could you say Rebbe was Mashiach? And we see Kagoin is Badafka, that it's an example. It's someone like...
Resembles as a character.
Yes. Kagoin is a regular Kagoin like. And if there is an example to the maisim, plural, Hainu it is Kagoin Daniel Ishchamodes. It's somebody like Daniel Ishchamodes. Therefore, it answers this there. How do we say only Daniel is Mashiach in maisim? Surely there's dozens of something who are really Mashiach in maisim. And for Rashi, no, I didn't mean only Daniel. Hainu Kagoin Daniel. Now, some people ask on the first period of Rashi, Mashiach comes from a maisim. It's only Daniel. How can you say someone else? So I am. You can see a deer. In Mashiach, maisim Shechain Achshav. If Mashiach is from someone who's alive now, the Gemara didn't say anything about now or kavar about Achshav or This says Chayim maisim. Rashi's maisim Shechain Achshav, who's alive now. Vada Hainu Rabbeinu Kodesh. In Chayim maisim Shemaisu kavar. The dik is on the word kavar, and if it's from someone who's deceased already, then it's Daniel. So Rav is not speaking the derech and shlilas to say if Mashiach comes in Achayim, it's only Rebbe, and if Mashiach comes in maisim, it's only Daniel. To be shayla anyone else from being thought of as Mashiach, once Rebbe dies, you could say there's no more the Matthias of Mashiach and Achayim according to Rav. No. Chaim Achshav. He's saying if he's alive now, it's Rebbe. Before, if he's passed away already, Kavar, it is Daniel. Not that he's being shayla of someone from the future for being Mashiach who's alive, or someone in the future who will yet to pass away from being thought of as the Mashiach ben maisim. So that's what we see from the dik. Chaim Aksha and Shemesu Bar. He didn't come to be even Shalila to being thought of as Mashiach Simon and Simon and me. He's just saying who he thinks the Mashiach is at this point in time, if it'll be from the living or from the maisim. Yeah, please.
So he's saying that before that, until his time, the one person who was most ready to be Mashiach was Daniel.
Yes, that's what he's thinking. So the question now is, the $1 million question. Why did Rav pick Daniel? Daniel, by the Rishon, many generations before Rav. You're going to pick someone from the Mason, pick the generation right before you. Why did you go all the way there? Obviously there's something special about Daniel. And some people like to say, yeah, because Daniel is the one. Do you know why he chose Derek Abshar, why why he picked Daniel? If Rav wanted to teach us the Maila of learning day and night, Rav would have brought an example from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Peras and Manasseh. If Rav wanted to teach us that we should know the Mailas of Mesiras Nefesh, who would Rav pick to teach us that? He would pick Rabbi Akiva. Masa Yahweh Liyadet Akimana. Because Rabbi Akiva was renowned and synonymous with Mesiras Nefesh. If Rav wanted to teach us the Maila of Hashgacha Pratis, he would have taught us from Nachum Ish Gamzu, because he was renowned and synonymous with Hashgacha Pratis. Being Rav wants to teach us Mashiach ben maisim, who should he pick? Daniel. Why? Because Daniel is synonymous with Mashiach and renowned for Mashiach. Also, because the Eibishter revealed the case to Daniel. Not even Yaakov Vinu was Megala. The Eibishter wasn't Megala. Even to Yaakov Vinu the case. Only Daniel was the Eibishter Megala the case, and he hid it in his Sefer Daniel. And you have to try to figure it out. So the Pashtus, everyone wants Mashiach, everyone wants to figure it out. Everyone's looking in the book of Daniel trying to figure it out. Daniel, I believe, is synonymous with Geula and Mashiach, and that's why it's picked. This says Daniel Ish Chamudek. Gemara and both Pirush and Rashi call him by his kinui Daniel Ish Chamudek. Daniel the beloved. There's Mefarshim that say, why is he called, one of the Talmidim of the Ramchal said, why is he called Daniel Ish Chamudek? He had Himud for the Geula. His mom desiring the Geula. He was right after the Churban Bayis Rishon. He was constantly having Himud for the Geula. To the extent, that's why it's called Daniel Ish Chamudek. And I believe that is why the Rav chose the example of Daniel.
To be honest, he could have picked anyone. The kasher is only by the first Pirush of Rashi. The second Pirush of Rashi is taka anyone. Like going Daniel. But as we're going to learn, another thing. There's one other diak. We have time for tonight?
Make it fast.
You make it fast. Okay. Bei Shilid, Bei Yanet, Bei Chanina all said the Rav was Ru'ila is Mashiach. It says in Sefer Hadeiros that Rabbi Chanina is Yitachin, that he was a Kohen. This is the brother of Pinchas Bar Chama, who is a Kohen, and Avshar, that this is the brother. So Aibazoi, he has the same problem as Rabbi, that he's related to David HaMelech from the Nukvaya, from the female side of the family.
What is that problem?
What? Because you have to be Ben Achar Ben from David HaMelech.
Where does it say that?
Oh, we'll get into that a different time. It's a good question, yes.
But it definitely can't be a coin.
There's different opinions.
What?
It definitely can't be a coin.
Oh yeah, you can, it's true.
Even if not.
But Rabbi Chanina is after he was a kohen. So therefore, if Israeli is Mashiach, it can only be from his female side of the family.
It can't be a coin regardless.
But if your mother is Mebeis David, he has the same problem as Rabbi. Rabbi, we said, what was the problem with Rabbi? He's only from David HaMelech, from the Nukvaya. So he has the same problem. Rabbi Chanina and Rabbi have the same problem. Therefore, Rashi comes along and says the first Pirush. He has to say they're calling Rabbi Mashiach. Why? Because the Rabbi Chanina called their Rabbi Mashiach. So as the Minchas Elazar learns, Sagile, it's enough. Some people hold it's enough, just that you're related to David HaMelech from the female side of the family.
Well,
So
what about the Kahuna problem?
From Shevet Yehuda.
Correct,
Being from David, you also have to be Akiyah Shilei. Mashiach, a king has to be from Shevet.
Rabbi was all upset with the Chasrinam because their Kahuna, they took the Malchus.
So what you're saying is all true. There's Mefarshim that could explain this. If you look at the Marsha by Rav Nachman, you'll see, he says Rav Nachman, how is he Kagoyin Ana? Because he was married to Larish Galusa. The Afshar, the Marsha said, and the Afshar that he was also Mebeis David. But there's a Havamina that just being married
to a woman who's been based on it, that's enough for the husband to be released Mashiach. There's different mafarsim.
For based, so there's two things. There's being based on it, but also a king is not allowed to be not from Shevet Yoda.
Correct.
You can't have a kohen who's even from his mother's line. He's not Shevet Yoda.
Pretty much.
According to Minchas Elazar, how could a kohen be malach on Mashiach? Malach is the malach.
So here we're learning the Torah. We're not learning halacha. That's something we should all understand. This is Gemara, not halacha. The Minchas Elazar says Rav can be understood as holding sagile, that it's enough just to be related to David Malach from the female side, which is why Rashi gives the first pshat. Rashi is the one who says Hainu Kugain Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Rashi himself is saying it.
Rabbeinu HaKadosh could be from Shevet Yehuda from his father's side.
He was Shevet Yehuda.
He was from Shevet Yehuda.
Yes. He was Shevet Binyan, right? I have to look it up.
But there's a problem over here.
So and the Rabbi Hanina has the same problem.
Nonetheless, Rav learns Hainu Rabbeinu HaKadosh.
So they hold it's enough. And by Daniel, why did it say Hainu Daniel?
It is Daniel. Why does the first person Rashi
Lafukim Hain, Lafukim David HaMelech? Why did Rav pick Daniel? It was Haikman Lata. The Dafka picked Daniel. Why did he pick Daniel? Another reason we can say is Lafukim is the David HaMelech.
That's why he taught us
From Daniel.
That's it for tonight, unless you have more questions.
Alright, check it out.
Yeah.